For those of you unfamiliar, Twitter is based around a very simple, seemingly trivial concept.
And also give our customers a much better and easier approach to handle some of the things that they're seeing.
This is a story of the founders of Twitter and the top 3 lessons that you can learn from their success.
Imagine a platform where you can talk about virtually anything you want to. May it be what you ate this morning, something funny that happened at the office, your favorite new boy band's comeback, or maybe even your deepest, darkest secrets and desires. Wait, let's rewind. So yes, a platform where you can talk about anything and everything under the sun, but all in 280 characters or less. But wait, there's already a platform that lets you do that. Yeah, you guessed it, it's Twitter. Today we're going to talk about one of the frontrunners in the social media game and how it got into the game in the first place. Fair warning though, it's going to be a bit of a bumpy ride, so sit back, relax, and try to make yourself comfortable as we talk about Twitter, how it began, and how it became the social media giant we know it as today. This is Business Explained. To learn more about all things money, get educated about how to do business, become business savvy, and enjoy more videos like these, subscribe to my channel and click on the notification bell, and may you be granted with many, many sweet returns. Now, usually when you search for the history of Twitter, you get the short and sweet version of its history. However, things are not always what they seem. I'll explain more later, but first we have to look at what the official press release of the social media platform is. Before we get into the nitty-gritty, let me tell you about the official version of Twitter's beginnings. So according to the official version, Twitter was conceptualized in Twitter co-founder Evan Williams' apartment. Along with former Google employee Biz Stone and Jack Dorsey, Williams conceptualized and started building a podcasting platform which she named Audio. However, Apple launched iTunes soon after, and it had a podcasting feature on it. This knocked Audio completely out of the running, and it quickly became obsolete. Williams, Stone, and Dorsey decided to then make something called Twitter instead, a platform where you can post various status updates in 140 characters or less. The investors were not too keen on supporting this new venture as they had initially signed up for Audio. To solve this problem, Williams bought all of them out and decided that they would be managing the company independently and working towards developing their new idea. That's the short, official version of the story, and that's the version of Twitter's history that was floating around for a while. That is, until Nicholas Carlson, a writer for Business Insider, released a scathing tell-all expose called The Real History of Twitter, to talk about how the owners and founders of Twitter conveniently left out one of its co-founders from the story, Noah Glass. According to interviews with employees who had been working at Twitter during its earlier days, Audio had actually started in Noah Glass's apartment. Ready for the longer but real version of the story? Here we go. Audio had begun in Noah Glass's apartment, but it later moved into Evan Williams's. It began to expand into an office and they began hiring people to build their team. However, in 2005, Apple's launch of iTunes made Audio, irrelevant. Williams and his team scrambled to look for new ideas. That's when Jack Dorsey pitched the idea of building a social networking platform where people can communicate and interact with one another based on their status. Seeing the potential of this platform, Noah Glass worked with Dorsey to develop the site before they presented the idea to the company. They called it Twitter. At the time, Evan Williams was actually not really all that convinced that Twitter would take off. But seeing no other better alternative, he stuck with it and put Glass in charge of it. Bizstone also helped Glass from time to time in developing Twitter. Almost a year later, Williams told investors about Twitter. Williams, believing it was not going to do well, offered to buy investors out. I mean, at the time, nobody knew that Twitter was going to turn out to be a billion-dollar company. Audio's investors accepted the deal, and all ownership of the company went back to Evan Williams. Everything seemed to be going smoothly up until that point. However, after he took ownership of the company, Evan Williams set out to do 2 things. The first was to change their company name to Obvious Corp. The second, he fired Noah Glass. We don't exactly know why he chose to do that, but some people speculate that it was either A, Glass and Williams' personality simply did not match, or B, Williams did not like the idea of Glass taking over to run Twitter himself. Well, either way, Glass was fired, and Williams became the head of what soon became one of the most successful social networking platforms in the world. Glass, on the other hand, was completely removed from the narrative. Glass himself credits Dorsey and a few others for working hand in hand with him in developing Twitter. He insists that Evan Williams and Biz Stone neglected to give him the credit for the work that he put into developing Twitter. Glass was noted saying this, "I do know that without me, Twitter wouldn't exist in a huge way." Now, when Twitter began to take off, investors must have felt pretty bad about it, considering that it was Evan Williams himself who proposed buying back audio from investors.
Lets people feel more connected and in touch despite distance and in real time.
When Twitter made it big, it was able to earn a whopping $5 billion. Ho! Some of the investors were left with the feeling that Williams had somehow conned them by making them believe that Twitter was not all it was set out to be. However, the general consensus is that they are now at peace with what happened. But that still puts a question towards how Evan Williams is as a person. A lot of people that Williams had worked with have described him as calculating. The New York Times write-up on him talked about how he neglected to properly compensate employees from a previous company. Williams was known to have said that all successful people make enemies along the way. There was actually tons of evidence that Twitter was already going to be a hit even before Williams had offered to buy out the investors. But it was not exactly sure why he did what he did. Since the expose on the true story of Twitter was released, Williams had then taken to Twitter to acknowledge that Noah Glass had indeed been neglected and that his contributions to Twitter were not properly credited. Today, Twitter has 330 million monthly active users. There are 152 million active users on the site per day. It is now used as a major platform for discourse and information, with a lot of news channels, TV personalities, celebrities, and influencers having their own Twitter accounts. A lot of people, especially millennials and those from the younger generation, tend to check Twitter first to get updates on things like current events and the latest trends. It's not a surprise to see that Twitter just keeps growing and growing, and it doesn't look like it has plans on stopping anytime soon. Over the years, it has even added new features to the platform. One of them is adding to Twitter's word limit and increasing it from 160 to 280. Seems like people have quite a lot to say. It has even released features like live streaming and photo and video sharing. Twitter has even tried to acquire a lot of companies over the years, one of the more notable ones being Instagram. Now, there's some drama about the whole Twitter and Instagram deal. Apparently, Twitter had offered around $500 million in stock to acquire Instagram. Jack Dorsey had known Instagram's founder, Kevin Systrom, from their college days at Stanford, so Jack thought it would be a pretty sweet deal. Dorsey was even known as one of Instagram's most influential users during that start, and he was very vocal about his support for Systrom's new venture. However, Systrom turned Dorsey down, stating that they wanted to maintain their independence. Things seemed to be pretty smooth for a while, that is until Dorsey got wind that Facebook's Mark Zuckerberg had offered Instagram a whopping $1 billion. The clincher? Instagram had actually accepted Mark Zuckerberg's offer. This was like a slap to Dorsey's face, who claimed that Systrom did not even give him an opportunity to negotiate or talk about it further. Of course, the whole debacle put a strain on their friendship. On the day that Facebook acquired Instagram, Dorsey left Instagram forever. To this day, we still don't know whether or not Systrom and Dorsey have reconciled, but Dorsey himself has not returned to the social media platform. However, all the drama surrounding Twitter has not stopped its rise to becoming one of the most prominent social media platforms in the world. The COVID-19 pandemic has made Twitter even more prominent, with its users looking for ways to keep themselves safe and healthy in dealing with the new coronavirus pandemic. What do you think about the real story of Twitter? Why do you think Williams decided to fire Glass? Do you think Williams really knew about Twitter's true potential when he offered to buy out their investors?
I believe Twitter is best as an interest-based network. People come with a particular interest.
Let's talk about it in the comments section below. I'll be responding to all of you who comment within the first hour. Money. It's like no matter where you go in the world today, you need money to get around. You need money to pay for your bills, your daily expenses, your mortgage, your food, and even the expensive Starbucks drink that you just bought this morning. In order for you to be able to do the things you want and get the things you need money. That's probably part of the reason why some people can just never seem to get enough of it. Now, in my previous videos, I've talked all about how the bank makes money and how money in general is created and distributed throughout economies. We even touched a little bit on the history of money. In my next video, I'm going to be talking to you about a theory that revolves around money and its distribution, the modern monetary theory. So sit back, relax, and let me tell you all about this relatively new concept. Stay tuned, stay educated.